Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Applying for Subsidized Housing, How, What, and Where. If you'd like to use the CART services for closed captioning, please click on CC and then on Show Subtitles to turn the captions on. Also, we want to let you know that although this presentation is being recorded, only the presenters will be recorded, and participants and participant questions will not be identified. My name is Maura Pensack, and I'm the Housing Liaison here in Cambridge. Today's webinar is part of the city's newly launched Housed in Cambridge Information to Open Doors campaign. So before we get started, I just wanted to say a few words about the campaign, and then we'll explain how to ask a question during the presentation, and then I'll turn it over to our presenter, Ryan McCluskey, the Housing Search Case Manager at the Cambridge Multi-Service Center. Housed in Cambridge is a year-long multi-department outreach, education, and information campaign that is designed to promote and inform all residents about all things housing, including resources and services. The City Manager's Office, the Community Development Department, the Multi-Service Center, the Department of Human Service Programs, and the Human Rights Commission have all been working together on this comprehensive platform because we're committed to improving the housing experience of all of our residents. Through this campaign, we have been offering these monthly training sessions. This is our 6th webinar, and if you've missed any of our prior presentations on topics such as fair housing, eviction prevention, home ownership, and other housing and housing-related topics, you can soon access them on the city website. We also have developed a new interactive online guide to help residents learn about Cambridge housing providers and to help navigate the resources that those providers offer. The interactive guide is organized around 6 key themes: affordable housing, emergency housing, housing rights, legal and mediation services, and safe and healthy homes and financial assistance. And that guide can be accessed at cambridgema.gov/housing guide. And in addition, through the campaign, we plan to develop other information materials. We'll continue to host these monthly webinars in order to build a virtual housing information library. And we hope soon that we'll be able to gather in person this fall, and we'll offer in-person trainings and roundtables. So please share this information with your family, friends, and neighbors, and stay connected through the city's website and the city's social media platforms. Watch for upcoming panels, and please also let us know what you would find helpful for us to discuss or to share. As I mentioned, today's webinar is presented by Ryan McCluskey, the Housing Search Case Manager at the Cambridge Multi-Service Center. I'm truly excited to introduce Ryan's presentation because it's really essential to understand the many paths to subsidized housing. All too often, folks think that there's a one-stop application and then end up missing out on other available housing opportunities. While we can't promise that you will find a subsidized home immediately, we can promise that through this webinar, you'll understand the many places and ways to apply, and it'll ensure that you have the knowledge of how to access the many different applications. If you've participated in past panels, you'll note that today's webinar is a slightly different format. Whereas in the past, we've offered information through a panel of experts. Today, Ryan will offer this training via a PowerPoint that we'll share. In this way, he'll provide a detailed and comprehensive explanation of the different types of subsidies, and will walk us through the process to apply and show us what all the different applications look like and require. So now, just before we get started, Crystal Rosa, Program Administrator for the City's Human Rights Commission and fabulous colleague and technical guru for our Housed in Cambridge campaign, is going to explain how to ask a question.
Thank you, Maura. Thank you, Maura. I'm going to share my screen really quickly and pull up the slide to show you guys. But we'll be asking questions through the box that if you hover down at the lower panel, it says Q&A. Only the presenters will be able to view your questions, and they will verbally respond to the questions during the webinar. You may send a question anonymously. Just make sure to click that. option. And all of the registrants will receive these resources after the webinar, probably in the next few days. So thank you.
Thank you. And so Ryan, please take us away.
Thanks, Maura. So I do hope everyone can see my screen, and I want to thank Maura again for the nice introduction, and thank all of you for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We do have a lot to cover, so I'll be taking several breaks during the presentations to answer any questions that you may have. With that, we'll get kicked off. So what we'll be covering today is, what is subsidized housing, the qualifiers, the difference between project-based units and mobile vouchers, how to apply and navigate Cambridge Housing Authority application, how to navigate and apply for the CHAMP application, and also how to apply and navigate the Section 8 Housing Choice and Project-Based vouchers, as well as the Massachusetts Section 8 Centralized Waiting List application, all of which can be found on the Metro Boston website, which will provide information on how to access during the presentation. So what is subsidized housing? So essentially, you pay 30 to 40% of your gross income towards your monthly rent based on the particular housing program that you're selected for. Subsidized housing can be obtained through vouchers, where it can be used to find private rental opportunities in the market and work with private landlords. There's also multifamily subsidized housing, where the subsidy is given to the owner of a unit, and the subsidy essentially stays with that particular unit in the sense that you can't take it elsewhere. So if you public housing, the majority of the time is owned and managed and operated by an individual housing authority. So it's not owned by a private landlord. In a few cases, they do have private management companies that do oversee operations, but in most cases, it's owned and managed by the individual housing authority. Subsidized housing is not owned and operated by a particular housing authority, but by private landlords who receive subsidies in exchange for renting to low and moderate income individuals. So what's the difference between a project-based voucher and a mobile voucher? It's very simple, actually. With a project-based, it means the voucher is attached to that particular unit. So if you accept a project-based unit, if you were to leave the unit, you would essentially lose the subsidy. So the voucher is attached to that particular unit. Whereas a mobile voucher, depending on what type of mobile voucher, can go anywhere you'd like to go, whether it be the state or federal. And we'll get into more details about that later in the presentation. If you get a voucher, you can use it anywhere in the state. If it's Section 8, which I'll show you how to apply for, you can use it outside of the state. If you get into public housing, you must live in the community where the voucher is, where you applied. Multifamily subsidized housing, you must live in the development where you applied. If you have a voucher and want to move, you can take your voucher with you. If you move from public housing or multifamily subsidized housing, you cannot take your voucher with you. The million-dollar question, who's eligible? Well, if you apply for public or subsidized housing, determining whether you're eligible is the first step in the application process. Being eligible really means that your yearly income is below a certain limit. And I should clarify that when they go by income, they go based on your gross income and not your net income. For some programs, at least one member of your family is either has to be a U.S. citizen or have eligible immigration status. If you're determined to be eligible, then a housing agency or subsidized landlord takes next steps, which is seen as you pass their tenant screening process. I won't go into too much detail over this. This will be available in the presentation, but it kind of gives a breakdown in terms of the income limits for the particular vouchers to see what you may or may not qualify. Other eligibility requirements. Does my family have to be a certain size to live in public or subsidized housing? No. Basically, you can have a single individual or families, they can go as high as they want. But obviously in situations like that, if it was a single individual, you wouldn't necessarily apply for 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartments. You'd have to apply for units that would fit the size and composition of your household. If you're an immigrant, are you eligible for public or subsidized housing? In general, you don't always have to be a United States citizen to apply for public or subsidized housing. Permanent residents and other immigrants can apply for all types of government housing. State public housing programs do not require information about immigration status or citizenship at all. However, for federal public housing, at least one member of your family must be a U.S. citizen or have a certain type of legal immigration status. If some members of your family are not U.S. citizens or do not have a proper immigration status, you can still apply for federal elderly disabled public housing, but you will not get the full assistance and your rent will be higher. You will not be eligible for most federal housing programs if your entire family is undocumented. I'm going to take a break right now before we go into the CHAMP applications to ask if anyone has any questions up until now.
Ryan, there is a question. How do you know the difference between state and federal housing when you're applying?
So generally, the Section 8, centralized list, and when we go through Metro, that is mostly federal housing opportunities or federally funded housing opportunities. The CHAMP application is state-aided housing, so that's state. Cambridge Housing Authority, that's going to be state, but usually Section 8 is federally funded housing.
Okay, and another question is gross. Is that also for those who are self-employed? And the second part is Medicare portion counted in Social Security.
So yeah, so if you are self-employed, whatever your gross income that you're reporting on your taxes, that's what you would go by. And I know there are deductions with Medicaid and Medicaid and health insurance on Social Security. Unfortunately, you would have to go by the gross award on your Social Security award.
Okay. For this section, that is all.
Perfect. So next, we're going to launch into the CHAMP application. So CHAMP, it stands for Common Housing Applications for Massachusetts Programs. And I'll walk you through kind of step-by-step through the site on where you can find it and how to navigate it. On the site, you'll be able to apply for state-aided public housing and alternative voucher programs. And you'll also be able to find any existing applications you may have. This is very important, and I'm going to keep reiterating this throughout the presentation. As your address changes, or if you do move or change your address, it's absolutely imperative to update your new mailing address in the CHAMP website, and that goes for all the other applications as well. If you're also interested in applying for other voucher programs or federal public housing, please contact your local housing authority. Those programs are not managed yet through this site. So CHAMP, so we were going to cover Cambridge Housing Authority as well. However, the Cambridge Housing Authority currently does not participate in CHAMP. So if you want to apply for Cambridge, you have to do that directly through their website. But if you want to apply for other local housing opportunities, CHAMP is your best bet. So we'll get started. How do you find it? Well, if you can find Google, you would just type in CHAMP, like We Are the Champions, MA. And it's the first thing you'll see on there. Home, you would select that. And you'll be brought to this website. Now, you may have already applied for some public housing opportunities. If you have, or if you already have an existing CHAMP application, you can log in using the profile that you set up. But if you haven't, I'll take you step-by-step how to create a profile on here and how to get some applications submitted. So to get started, you select your language preference and simply click Get Started. Options below. So like I said, if you have an existing application, you can log in with the profile information you created right here in the login. But we're going to create accounts. So on a create account, we're going to click Begin. So the first step is creating a user login. This will require an email address, and you can create a password. Once you create that password, you have to verify that you're not a robot and create user. Now you're going to notice that we're going to go from step 1, create user login, to step 3. So what was step 2? Essentially, step 2 is when you do create the user profile and enter an email, it's going to send you a link in your email confirming your address, which you'd respond to, just confirming the address, and that'll take you right to step 3, which is a review of your rights. I won't read these all out. You can take the time to read them in detail when you do apply. Once you've read them and understand them, you click check off that you've read and understand, and you click accept. Next, they're going to take you to the page where you're going to be asking for your name, date of birth, social security number. So it's important to have that information ready to go. This is a page that everyone has to do, and this is an important step too, because if you've applied in the past and you're not sure if you have applied in the past or if you have any existing applications out here, this step will show you if you have anything existing in the system. So if you enter all your information, date of birth, name, social security number, and you have any existing applications already started, it'll tell you that. However, if you don't have any existing applications, you'll get this screen. We can't find your application in the system. So in this case, you would create a new application, which is the green tab below. First, you'll come to your dashboard, which is going to ask, basically have an overview of all your personal information. And it'll also ask you to enter household members, date of birth, their date of birth, social security number. It'll ask for veteran status, if anyone in the household has any documented physical disabilities, income for everybody. And then it'll also take you through if your household needs, a specific unit based on need. So if you require a unit that doesn't need a lot of stairs or requires to have handbars, this is the step where you'll be entering that information. And it'll also be the step where you have to put your mailing address. It's very important to have a reliable mailing address at this step under housing programs. So you can, because when CHAMP does reach out to you, they'll do it via email and also via physical mail. And they only give you a limited amount of time to respond to some of these applications, usually 7 to 10 business days. So it's important that you're entering a mailing address that you have access to and mail that you can check regularly. Once you have all that entered in there, you'll come to the Housing Programs tab, which is right here. On this tab, you're going to scroll down and there's a tab where you're going to select Manage My Selections or Show Me All Housing Selections. It'll provide a list of all the housing authorities that are participating in CHAMP that you're eligible for. It's a simple matter of scrolling down and clicking on the housing authorities you wish to apply to. When that's done, you hit confirm and you'll be signed up for those housing authorities. And again, this is just going back to the application phase. These are some of the questions they'll be asking you. So just make sure you're answering honestly and in as much detail as possible. And this is what you'll see when you're selecting the housing applications. What I'd recommend is show all housing. So that way you can see exactly, everything you're eligible for. It'll give you the best options and give you an idea of everything you're eligible to apply for. I know this is a little scrunched, but I thought you get a full view of the page. So this is basically the application certification. So after you click on all the housing authorities you're interested in applying for, you're going to certify and click Submit Application. I did want to touch briefly on the Screening and Verification tab. This is a really good tool. So a lot of the housing authorities are going to be asking for proof of income, photo ID, social security cards, birth certificate while they're processing your application. With this, you can actually upload a lot of these documentations on the website so the housing authorities have them ready on hand. Now, if you don't have access to a scanner or anything like that, don't sweat it. You'll have the opportunity to provide the documentation when you near the top of the list. And here's some of the stuff you can upload. There's the applicant file. So let's say if you're a military veteran and you're trying to show proof of military status, you could upload your DD-214 or military discharge paperwork. If you're applying for a disabled preference, you can show proof of disability, upload the documentations here as well. And this is the most useful tab, so the history tab. So this will show you all the housing authorities you apply to. It'll be time-stamped and dated. So for the most part, anyone who is reviewing your application, it will show activity under the history tab here. So let's say I'm Joe Smith who works at Somerville Housing Authority, and you're nearing the top of the application or at the top of the list. You'll see the activity under this history tab. So it's good to check in periodically, log in and see if there's been any activity under your history tab. So if you do see some activity from some of the housing authorities reviewing your application, it might be a good indicator to keep your eyes peeled in the mail for some paperwork that they'll be mailing out to you. It doesn't necessarily mean you're nearing the top of the list, but it's just a good thing to keep track of. That's it with the CHAMP application. I'm going to pause again. Does anyone have any questions about how to access CHAMP, how to navigate it, or any of the questions that they ask?
We certainly do. That was great, Ryan. A few follow-up questions from the first segment. The question about Medicare counted in Social Security, the clarification of the question was, do you count Medicare in your, oops, I just lost the question, sorry. Do you count Medicare in including Social Security income? When you write down your income for Social Security, do you count the Medicare portion?
Mara, I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that?
Sure. When you are completing the income portion of your application, and if you have Social Security, do you include the Medicare portion? Do you count Medicare in that income?
Are they talking about the deduction for the Medicare?
I believe so.
Yeah, you would include that, yes.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what is AHVP, Alternative Housing Voucher Program, versus other vouchers?
It's a great question, and actually, as I was putting this together, I'm a little disappointed with myself. I didn't go into further detail about this. It's a great program. It really focuses on individuals with disabilities who may be under the age of 60 or 62. So let's say you're looking for a handicap accessible unit, and the only units that are available with those handicap accessible features are in senior housing. You might be under the age of 60 or 62 and you're eligible to get into senior housing, but if you have special disabling conditions, that could give you priority to access those available units.
And how would you apply for that?
It's actually when you're going through the housing application section, one of the parts it'll ask is if you would like to apply for the AVHP priority voucher on there. So it's a matter of clicking and putting some information regarding your particular situation. So it can be done on the same tab, same screen, essentially.
Great, I did see that on the CHAMP. I don't know if you want to click, if you're possible to click back to that slide and then folks can see it.
Certainly. I'm not sure if I took a screenshot. Let's see.
Yeah, it was in, there you go, right at the back. Under programs.
No, so.
Well, it's under the, right there. Right
yes,
there.
so
the
include,
very first one there.
Yeah, so you would include AVHP, but actually, you would include the AVHP results, but you would also click if you want to apply for that particular one on the screen before, which is typically you'll find on this screen under housing selections. So you would scroll down and there's a blue tab that indicates you want to apply for that particular type. And so when you get to this section right here, what kind of solves everything is show all housing, but you can include the results for AHVP during that. So the actual selection, which unfortunately is not seen on the screen, would be on this page right here, housing programs.
Great. We really have a lot of great questions. I'm going to keep going. What is the privacy risk of entering your Social Security versus certificate, etc., and how is it protected from identity theft?
So it basically, when you put your personal information in here, how do you know it's not going to get hacked or your personal information isn't going to be compromised? I do know it's a secure website. What kind of website security, I do not know. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you. But I do know it is a secure website and it is protected, very well. And I think they go over the specifics of that, the terms and conditions. But in terms of the particular type of security they use for the website, I'm sorry, I don't know.
And I think it's true that it is secure and it is via the state. So I think, they are very in tune with making sure that things are as protected as possible. But it certainly is a good question and concern these days. It is also possible, am I not correct, Ryan, that if you prefer, you can complete a paper application and send it in?
Mara, that's a fantastic point. Thank you for bringing that up. So all of these can be done in writing. So you could go to the CHAMP website, request a physical copy. And also when we get to the Section 8 applications and Cambridge Housing Authority applications, those can all be done via paper, physically dropped off to particular housing authorities. This is just for ease of access. It's online is always the easiest way to submit it, but if you're really concerned about security, which is very understandable, you can always get a physical copy requested and submit it in person via mail or drop it off in person.
Great. Another one that's a little bit specific, but I'm going to ask it, that if my income is very low, like 40,000, can I still apply for affordable housing?
So it really depends on family size. I would say when in doubt, always apply. They do specify the minimum income. Some programs you have to be under 80% of the median income. Others you have to be under 50% of the area median income. But when in doubt, I would apply. Because it doesn't take very long to do, and if your income ever changes, you're at least in the system, and at least you already have an application on file.
Okay. Another couple of questions. Does the system sort what you're eligible for once you enter your gross?
So what this particular system does is yes. So it really selects the particular housing programs you would qualify for. They do it based on your gross income. They do it based on age, veteran status, any disabling conditions. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And when you're filling out your initial application, those are the questions they'll be asking. So that's the goal of the initial application, is to really kind of hone in on the housing programs that you're specifically eligible for. I hope that answered your question.
We'll find out if the person types a follow-up, but I think just to jump into that, just to maybe to reiterate, this particular application is for public housing around the state. So it is one application that will go to any and all local housing authorities that you have checked off where you are interested or willing to live. Ryan is going to be going through other applications that are separate. So it's not like you sign up for this one and don't sign up for the others. A really important point of our presentation today is to make sure you sign up for any and all of these applications. It's a little, CHAMP, this application goes, as I said, to all local housing authorities, so you would check them all off. If you are only interested in staying in Cambridge, then you wouldn't necessarily do this one, because this, if you get housing through this application, it would be public housing in another community. But if you are willing to live in any other community, you would complete this one. Is that correct, Ryan? Or did I miss something?
If I can jump in too, because that reminded me of another aspect of the CHAMP website. is if you're applying for any Boston Housing Authority units on the CHAMP website, you're required to fill out a supplemental application, so when you get to the screen, let me fast forward here. So when you get to the portion where you submit the application, and you click Submit Application, a blue tab is going to appear if you applied for any Boston public housing to fill out an additional supplemental application, which is pretty straightforward, should take about 5 or 10 minutes to do. And it's really just going to go into ask some additional information regarding criminal background, income, household size. So all it's essentially the same information you entered for CHAMP. But that you are required to submit a supplemental one, but that can be accessed through the CHAMP website as well. And there will be a tab that will be very obvious prompting you to do that.
So the next question is, who accepts CHAMP? So again, I think it ties into what we were just talking about, that it is all the local housing authorities that are part of this system, and I believe it's only Boston and Cambridge and maybe some others in other kind of areas of our state that have their own separate applications, although Boston is partially on this right now. Is that, did you want to add to that, or I should have just...
Mara, that was perfect, thank you.
Let's see the other questions. Does applying for ELDA senior housing exclude you from other options?
No. So ideally what you want to be doing, and I'm going to go more into priorities and preferences further in the presentation, but what you want to be doing is getting yourself, if possible, in the smallest applicant pool. So if you are over 62 when you qualify for senior housing, you can absolutely apply for elder or senior housing. You have a better chance of getting in there quicker, just because to apply there and to qualify for, you have to be over that age criteria. But you can absolutely apply for other programs out there. But that one specifically, it would be a smaller pool of applicants as opposed to the general public.
Great. Can you specify who to request a paper application for each program?
Who would be processing the applications for each program?
No, I'm sorry. To whom would a applicant request a paper application from or for?
So if I'm understanding correctly, and Mara, please jump in if I'm wrong. So are they asking how do they request a specific application?
Yes.
Physical
yes,
one?
a paper application.
Perfect. So you could contact any housing authority you want to access that. You can either pick one up or even see if they can mail one out to you. I'm not sure if they're able to do that, but it's worth contacting directly and requesting.
Terrific. And the last is, does public housing equal, or is that the same as high-rise projects?
So it depends. I mean, public housing could be a high-rise unit, really depending on the housing authority. But it really depends on, like we talked about, project-based units. A lot of units, and there are subsidies given to particular landlords to provide affordable units in different apartments. So it could be just a project-based unit that was given through Section 8, or it could be a building that's managed and owned by the particular housing authority, whether that's a high-rise or a one-story building. It doesn't matter.
Okay, I think that is it for this section. I'll let you move on.
Perfect. So now we'll be getting to the Cambridge Housing Authority website. To access the website, you just go to Google Cambridge Housing Authority, and this is the home screen it should bring you to. So what we're going to focus on today is how to sign up. And Cambridge Housing Authority, just to reiterate what Maura said, you cannot apply through the CHAMP website. It has to be applied either by picking up a physical application or by applying online. There's a lot of benefits, though, to applying online, and I'll go over that. So when you get to the home screen, you're going to click on Applicants. You're going to scroll down and you'll find this bar, which is application for CHA housing programs. You're going to select that. And I know this is a little bit crunched. I do apologize, but I just want to make sure you guys got the full picture. So at the top, you'd put in your date of birth. It's going to ask if you or your co-head of household have a disability. You're required to say you're at least 18, click all the requirements. And then on the open list, you can apply for certain things. So let's say you're over 60 or 62 and want to apply for elderly or disabled housing. You could select those. If you're a single individual and want to apply, you're just looking for a room situation, you can apply for a single room occupancy unit. Obviously, if for single room occupancies, just as a side note, you have to be a single individual applying to qualify for those particular units. They don't accept couples or families or anything like that. So you would click on the units that you're interested in on the left-hand side that says open list. And then you would essentially just click on the wait list that you'd like to apply for. Down at the bottom, you'd enter your social security in twice and then click continue. First part, you'll be submitting the information for you or wherever the head of household may be. That includes your name, social security number, date of birth, and current address and mailing address and email address. Again, I can't reiterate enough. It is so important that you are putting a mailing address where you can have ready access to the mail and that you check on a regular basis. And like I said, if your address does change at one point or another, it's imperative that you go back in here and update the mailing address. If you scroll further down on the page, you can list your family members who you're applying with. Again, make sure you have their date of births and social security numbers handy. It's going to ask, again, same thing with the CHAMP application, gross income. If you have any language preferences, you can choose a language preference and have you'd like them to communicate with you. And then it'll ask you if you live in Cambridge, if you work in Cambridge. If you are a Cambridge resident or staying at a Cambridge shelter, that would give you a certain preference. So with the CHAMP application, being a current Cambridge resident will not give you preference, whereas with Cambridge Housing Authority, being a Cambridge resident does give you a certain preference. But like I said, I'll cover priorities and preferences in more detail, but when I say you have a preference or a priority, that doesn't mean they give you the keys as soon as you click apply. There's still a waiting process, but it would give you an edge. After going through that, you would click on the understanding, and on the bottom right-hand side, you click on complete application. Once you do that, you'll get a confirmation message right here. If you have a printer at home, I do recommend you print out and make sure you save your confirmation. But I would absolutely email it to yourself. Email me my confirmation info so you have it saved so you can access it at any time. Now on the same tab, so when you go to the CHA main page website, you'll click applicants, because a lot of times folks want to know where they stand at in a lot of these waiting lists. If you don't have access to the internet or you have trouble navigating by yourself, you can call the waiting list information line, which is listed here, or you could create a profile on the portal, which is really cool, and I'll show you why. So if you click portal, what you want to do is you want to create an account, which is right here. And it would ask you to create a username, a password, your email address, last four, your social, and date of birth. Once you do that, you can create a profile for yourself. So if you want to know where you stand at any of the current waiting lists, you can create that profile, log in, and it'll show you where you are in terms of the different waiting lists. I'm going to take a short break before we go into Metro Housing. Does anyone have any questions or concerns regarding the Cambridge Housing Authority application process?
I do not see any questions at this point.
Okay. Next, we'll be going through 3 different applications, all of which can be accessed through the Metro Housing Boston website. So the Housing Choice Voucher Program, commonly known as Section 8, is the federal government's major program for assisting very low-income families, elders, and people with disabilities to afford safe and sanitary housing in the private market. Since housing assistance is provided on behalf of the family or individual, participants are able to find their own housing, including single apartments, townhouse, homes, whole 9 yards. Now, this is the link right here, the direct link for Metro Housing Boston. You can also just Google apply for Section 8, Metro Housing Boston, and they'll take you directly to where you need to go. So when you click on that link, you're going to scroll down until you hit the statewide waiting list. So there's 3 selections here. There's a Section 8 pre-application, supplemental online. And then they also have two papers. So if you prefer to do it physically, print it out and turn it in, that's fine. But again, we're going to be focusing on the online application portion. So you're going to complete online application, and it'll bring you to this screen. Now, by this time, you'll be a pro because you already have your date of birth, social security, family demographics ready to go. So all of these applications will ask the same information: social security, current mailing address, family composition. Does anyone have any disabling conditions? Anyone have veteran status? So you'll just go through and answer as accurately and honestly all the questions as possible. At the end of that, you'll have to do what's called an e-signature, where you use your mouse to sign the affirmation that all the information you provided was true and accurate. And once that's done, you'll get a verification that your application has been submitted via email. Next, if you go back to the previous screen, when you initially click on the link, there's the Project-Based Voucher Program. Again, there's both a paper application available and on the online application. I like online because you can get verification that your application was submitted, it's time-stamped, it's a record that everything was submitted at a certain date and time. So you're going to click Complete Online Application. Now, project-based, like we covered previously, means the voucher is attached to a particular unit. So you can't take the voucher and go apply to different landlords around. You have to accept that particular unit the voucher is attached to. When you click on that, it'll give a breakdown. This doesn't show all the available project-based units available, but just a few of them. So it shows you, what they have available. And if you scroll down further, you can click on the ones you'd be interested in. I encourage you to only apply for the ones that you're really interested in. At the end, and again, this is going to ask for the same information all the other applications have asked for. Name, date of birth, social security. It's also going to ask for that information for your family members as well. So make sure you have all that information ready to go before you sit down and start. At the end, it's going to have an electronic signature again. You can sign with a mouse pad and you'll click Submit Application. And again, you'll get an email verifying that your application was submitted. Centralized waiting list. Again, this can be found in the same link for Metro Housing Boston. So it's going to be at the very bottom of the page. So it's going to say Centralized waiting list. You're going to click where it says click here for more information. And you'll be brought to this page right here. So a lot of the Section 8 participants, there's I think around 102 housing authorities that are participating in the centralized waiting list, where you can have access to pretty much any housing authority that's participating and can apply for anyone that's participating. So when you get to this page right here, you're going to select gosection8.com, and then it'll bring you to this website right here. You're going to click Start Application on the right-hand side. I included this really quick just because it goes over some of the income requirements. And if you're not sure if you had applied in the past, you can always click Find Application to see if you've already have an application submitted. Here's just a quick screenshot of some of the many housing authorities that are participate in this. Like I said, there's well over 100. So these are only a handful of the participating housing authorities on this website. So Arlington Housing Authority, for example, you want to apply for them. You select Apply Now. And you'll get this prompt to put in your name, mailing address, and to create a password. The website will send you a confirmation email to confirm your email address. You can click on that. And it'll also send you a phone verification. It'll send you a text via phone. However, if you do have the email, you can verify it that way as opposed to the phone. And here's what it looked like. It would send you a quick 6-digit number you can do to verify that you are who you are. Next, we'll come to applicant contact information. Again, I know it's the same as all the other applications. You're going to have your social security, date of birth, proof of income, and it's going to ask for any specific, are you disabled, are you a veteran, anything like that. So you'll just go through the prompts, ask about citizenship, disabilities, the size of your household, and the size of the unit that you're looking for. You'll also go through some questions like this, and all the other applications, for the most part, have similar questions to this, asking if you've been displaced due to a natural disaster, displaced due to domestic violence, displaced due to government action. There's a reason they're asking for those, and I'll go into them in more detail when we get to the priorities and preferences section of the presentation. Once you go through all the prompts and enter all your information, you're going to click agree. And then if you click the button down at the bottom, it'll do a quick e-signature for you. So you sign that and submit. Once that's submitted, you'll get an application ID, which I strongly recommend that you print. And like most of the other applications, you'll be getting email confirmation that your application was submitted successfully. So I'm going to hold off for now because I covered a lot with those 3 lists that can be found all on the Metro Housing website. Does anyone have any questions regarding that or any of what we've covered so far?
Indeed, we do. And I am very happy that folks are asking these questions. And please know, if you're a participant and listening, if you're confused, it makes sense. And because this is confusing, it can be overwhelming. We're really happy to answer any and all questions. And if we don't get to everything, please, contact us after the webinar or at any point, and we're happy to work with you individually. Our hope is that someday this won't be so confusing. That was a goal of the state while they created the CHAMP application, to kind of streamline at least that portion. And then the centralized list for Section 8 as Ryan was describing. But again, we totally understand that this can be overwhelming and confusing. So please keep asking questions, contact us, etc. With that said, another question is, does applying, no, I'm sorry, I asked that already. Let me just jump down. How to apply for project-based housing, which can be anywhere. Is that included in CHAMP and CHA applications?
I'm sorry, how to apply for private housing or?
Project-based. So I think the question is about the difference between project-based and public housing.
Gotcha. So public housing is usually managed through particular housing authorities, where the buildings are owned and managed by the individual housing authorities. Project-based are landlords who have units that are subsidized to provide to individuals, low income, who can apply for them individually. So in short, public housing owned and operated by local housing authorities. Project-based are private landlords who have been awarded subsidies to provide for individuals who are applying and would be eligible for.
And let me just jump, there's a number of specific questions. One is, well, can you take a tour of any housing you apply for? That's not specific. So maybe we can answer that. And just in terms of timing, perhaps we can go on to your next next slides after this, and then we can go back to try to answer some of the other questions.
Certainly, certainly.
So that was the, are you, sorry, and I wasn't very clear. Can you take a tour of any housing you applied for?
That's tricky, especially in the age of COVID right now. So if you're applying for public housing, typically you can go view the unit if you are selected and becomes available. But yeah, I mean, if you have to be at the top of the list or being very close to it being accepted for the unit to get to that stage. But typically, if you apply, you couldn't go just look at units. Unfortunately, you'd have to wait till you're selected for that particular unit to see whether or not you'd like to accept it or not.
Terrific, thank you.
And Mara, I'm sorry, are we continuing with questions or should we continue with?
I think maybe you should continue with the slide and we'll go back and try to answer some of the other questions.
Sounds like a plan. So you've applied for CHAMP, you've applied for Cambridge Housing Authority, you applied for every wait list there is under the sun. Now, when do you get your voucher? That's tough to say. The need for affordable housing, across the country is huge. And unfortunately, there's not enough units that are available to meet the demand. So the waiting list can be rather long. I always say, unless you're definitely tied to a certain community for a particular reason, apply for as many different housing programs as possible. It's like planting seeds. The more seeds you plant, the more likely something is to grow. And also make sure that you're getting, and that's why I love the online applications, is because they send you electronic receipts that are time-stamped on all your applications. It's important to keep track of those and know when you applied. And like I said, I've said it, I think, a few times already, but it is so important to make sure that you're updating all the applications with your current address. So if you're moving somewhere or changing addresses for one reason or another, make sure you're updating the current address, because the wait can be a long time, but when you do reach the top of the list, when that happens, things move very, very quickly. So it goes from 0 to 100, where they only give you a limited amount of time to respond to a request for more information once you reach the top of the list. So make sure you're checking your mail regularly and that you're responding to any correspondence from any of the housing authorities. Priorities and preferences. The law requires different housing programs to establish preferences and priorities for certain people. Preferences and priorities are categories of people with special status or urgent housing needs. For state housing programs, these are priorities to see who gets housing first, and they may be preferences, but where essentially they go. Federal housing programs usually have different preferences. What's important to remember is whether you fit into any of these categories or not, that move you up the waiting list more quickly or not. And I'll go over what some of those priorities or preferences are right now. And again, just because you may have a priority, that doesn't mean you'll be getting into housing right away. It definitely gives you an edge, but it doesn't guarantee you're going to be getting the housing immediately. Usually there is usually a wait as well, even if you have a priority or preferences or several priority or preferences. So some common preferences for federally funded housing. If you're a local resident, so like I said, if you're applying for Cambridge Housing Authority and you're a Cambridge resident, that's going to give you an edge. Individuals who are facing or fleeing a domestic violence situation. People who are homeless or who will immediately become homeless to no fault evictions. So if you're in a building where you've been staying for many years, you're up to date with rent, and the landlord decides to sell the property from underneath you, and files a no fault eviction, that can give you a priority. Individuals with disabilities, elderly or near elderly, veterans, usually get a preference across the board. For state-funded housing programs, priorities are set by law. This includes state public housing, the Massachusetts Rental Voucher Program, and the alternative rental voucher program, Ahvp, that we covered when we were going through CHAMP. Housing authorities must give you priority if you are homeless due to fire, natural disaster, urban renewal, or combination by local board of health or inspectional services. If you have a housing emergency, this is defined by each housing authority, but includes people who are fleeing domestic violence, have severe medical emergencies, or are homeless, or have been evicted through no fault of their own, have an alternative housing voucher for people with disabilities and their families that need to relocate, already live in public housing and need to transfer for a good cause. Let's say you're in public housing and for medical necessity, you have to go to a different unit, that would give you priority. State housing programs also give preference to veterans and local residents. So for example, if you're a veteran and you have a disabling condition, that's going to put you higher than just an individual who just has a disabling condition. If you're homeless and qualify for state preference, you can also choose preference for local residents, either in the last community where you are a tenant or where your shelter is located if you're homeless. Some housing programs must also have an affirmative action plan to admit minority applicants. So again, important things to remember. Update any existing applications that you have on file. Check your mail frequently and respond to any correspondence from any of the housing authorities as quickly as you can. And that's where it's going to be important that once you apply, make sure you have all the documentation that they'll be asking for, which is usually proof of income, Social Security, birth certificates, photo IDs, the whole 9 yards. So if you don't already have those documents ready to go, I would strongly recommend you work on acquiring them as soon as you apply, because when your time comes, they'll be asking for that information and they'll want it quickly. And like I said, just because you may have a priority or a preference doesn't mean you're going to be going into housing right away. There is still a waiting period. Here are some sources you can go to if you have any questions regarding different priorities or preferences or want more information regarding different housing programs. Mass Legal Help is a great resource. We have the CHAMP website, the CHA website, the Metro Housing Boston website, and the Section 8 Centralized Waiting List website. And to go off what Mara said, it can be very, very overwhelming. So if you're staring at the screen saying, geez, this is a lot, don't feel bad, it is a lot. But if you feel like you wouldn't be confident in terms of navigating or signing up for any of these on your own, you can always contact us, make an appointment, and we'd be happy to walk you through how to sign up for all of these. So don't hesitate to reach out. At this point, does anyone have any questions thus far regarding different priorities or preferences, or regarding really anything we've been over throughout the course of the presentation?
Thank you, Ryan. This is fantastic. And for those who are listening, we are going to go just a few minutes over the hour so that we can answer some more of these questions. If you need to drop off, again, you will be emailed this whole presentation, and please always feel free to contact us.
Well, and actually, sorry, Maura, not to interrupt you, in case folks want to drop off now, I do want to let you folks know we are planning more of these, both workshops here at the Multi-Service Center and possibly with the House in Cambridge. That's going to cover navigating tenant screening process, collecting and supporting the documentation you might need, identifying and overcoming different housing barriers, and housing search tips and tricks. And if there's anything that you would like to know more about, or feel like you need to be informed about, please give us feedback. We want to design these courses around you and your needs. So any feedback is definitely appreciated.
Thank you. That's great. It is important for folks to know. So two really great questions that this person writes. I understand what is project-based, but not clear on how to access application for such units. What sites? CHA, CHAMP, Metro Boston, etc. And that is it's a very good question because it is confusing. Do you want to take a stab at it?
Maura, I'm so sorry. I had difficulty hearing the entire question. If it's easy for you to answer, feel free to jump in just out of respect of time.
No, I apologize, and I'll say the question one more time in case others did not hear it. I understand what is project-based, but not clear on how to access the application for such units. What sites? Would it be CHA, CHAMP, Metro Boston, etc.? So it is not CHAMP. CHAMP is for public housing. Metro Boston does have a project-based list, and that is for the project-based units that they manage. CHA also has that. Other project-based units can be accessed through those other housing authorities. Am I correct, Ryan?
That's correct. So I don't want to go all the way back, but actually, why not? Hold on a second.
And I'll see while you're doing that, I'll just say, I think project-based is the most confusing. So for everyone who is still listening, every town has a local housing authority. Separate from that, there are 9 regional housing agencies that the state basically DHCD has subcontracted to, if you will. The local housing authorities run the public housing, as Ryan said. The housing administering agencies, the regional agencies, do not manage public housing. That's a main difference. However, both local housing authorities and the regional agencies do administer vouchers, both Section 8 and the state vouchers. Project-based housing, though, is, again, I would say, more confusing because it is sort of germane to the particular community and particular sites. I'll let you take it from there, Ryan.
Yeah, no, Maura, that was perfect. And like I said, with the Metro Housing website link, this will be the second application that we went through. Project-based voucher program. It'll list all the project-based units they have available. You just fill out the application like you do for any of the others, click submit, and you'd be on the list.
Great. The other question that I think is really good that we didn't have time to go over, but if you can say a few words, it's the CHA, Metro, Boston, or Champ site cover private-based projects such as Finch in Cambridge or the Peabody properties, developments, etc. So I believe what this person is referring to is the lotteries that come up. And maybe you can say a few words about that.
Yeah, so there are a number of different lotteries that do come up that have different income requirements. It's definitely worth applying for. Just make sure some of them have minimum income requirements. Just make sure you're very mindful of those. More, I know you work a lot with a lot of the lotteries around here. So I mean, it's the problem with the lotteries is that they're not a guaranteed thing. They're just that, they're a lottery. Whereas if you apply for the public housing, the Section 8, if you're patient and you have all your information ready to go and you qualify, eventually, hopefully, you will be receiving that subsidy. Whereas the lotteries, unfortunately, it's not a guarantee.
That's right. And I think the pro to a lottery is that you have just as much chance as anyone. So when lotteries open up at these different developments, they have a certain amount of time during which you can apply. And you have to have your application or pre-application, as it is, in by that date. However, if you apply on the last date, you have just as much opportunity as the person who applies on the first date that the lottery opens up. With that said, as Ryan said, thousands of people apply for these, and it is, just the luck, literally luck of the draw. It's also important to note that most of them, although not all, and it really depends, they often have minimum and maximum income levels, and you have to fit into that. If you don't meet the minimum income standard, but you do already have a mobile voucher, you can, in fact, apply and use that voucher. But the different lotteries have different, depending on how they are funded and depending on what level of income they can accept and what the standards are, will depend on who's eligible. So it's always, if you hear of one, please contact us and we can kind of give you some more specific information for those. I think that is about it on questions. I want to thank everyone who participated today. If we didn't get to your question, I apologize. I cannot, stress enough. probably said it too many times, please contact us. This is my contact information on the screen. And Ryan, is yours there also?
So I have the general multi-contact number on there. So if you call that main number there and ask for myself or really anyone requiring housing, usually if you're looking to sign up for public housing or any housing related requests, for the most part, would be transferred to me. So if you do need some if you have individual questions, concerns, or if you need some hands-on help actually, submitting these applications, I'd be happy to schedule an appointment. It doesn't take very long, maybe 30, 40 minutes. I can get you on everything under the sun. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Ryan. Also, thank you again to Crystal Rosa for being the genius behind all of these webinars. And also thank you to Tracy Ikara for the closed captioning. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.